Folks, we've already got some new cards like this crazy rogue card.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right, lots more new cards in this video. Starting off with Blackjack Stunner, a new 1-mana rogue card. Battlecry, if you control a secret, return a minion to its owner's hand. It costs 2 more. So you've got here basically a sap style effect for rogue, but you can add in the mana penalty from a card like Freezing Trap. So it's really the best of both worlds. A targeted sap for 1 mana is, first off, ridiculous in its own right. When you add that mana penalty, it's just completely bonkers. And you get a 1/2 minion on top of all of that. This card is a ridiculous anti-tempo card, just completely ruining anything that your opponent wants to do with minions. Now, of course, it does have this condition if you control a secret. Now, that's a tough condition to meet. We haven't seen Rogue succeed with secrets in the past. We don't know all the full secret package yet for Rogue. The first one I wasn't super excited about. But is this card good enough to make secrets relevant for Rogue? Maybe. I think this is just ridiculous tempo that tossing in a secret or two to get the consistency out of this card could be amazing. Particularly if there's a secret that doesn't easily activate. Like if it's one that you can keep around for a while. Otherwise, this kind of becomes like a 2-card, 3-mana sap, which frankly might still be pretty good in a lot of ways. Just removing something and making it cost more for 3 mana is pretty fantastic. But combo activator, low cost, decent body for its stats. Everything about this card lines up except for that condition. So this is one that's like the power level's off the charts, but is the likelihood for it to succeed there? That's where I still have questions. And the next up here, we have this ridiculously cool card. It's Shadow Council for Warlock. It's a 1-mana spell, and it will replace your hand with random demons, and it will give them +2/+2. So, I mean, I don't even know what to make of this card. It screams meme card at first glance, right? Like, replacing your hand, what is this, right? But I'm wondering if it's not actually just going to make sense. Remember, we're getting a lot of new demons in this expansion, and I think on average, they're probably going to be really good cards. I'm sure a handful of legendaries, some of the imprisoned stuff. And I think that means Shadow Council might give you a pretty solid hand in most cases. So is this just like a Renounced Darkness meme, or can you actually utilize this to kind of bail out a really bad late game hand? You know, you're just sitting there and you've got a lot of like situational or synergy stuff or card draw cards that you can't play late in the game. You slam Shadow Council, you turn it into a handful of higher value minions that are clearly overstated for their cost, and maybe it gives you like that one last hurrah in a Warlock deck. Maybe you could even use this in like a Zoo deck early just to get some really high pressure minions rolling in the mid game and just flip so hard that your opponent can't deal with all of these stats, because it's basically like, you know, embiggen for your hand in some ways. It's just random minions. The problems, of course, are you going to get the right cost minions? You're going to get good minions. If it's all imprisoned demons, everything's going to be dormant and delayed for so long. Maybe you won't ever be able to like swing the game back. But I wouldn't totally count out Shadow Council. I think this is a really cool kind of card. Now, beyond that, of course, keep in mind, Warlock can just like generate Warlock cards now. They have things like Twisted Knowledge. Get this, it could be a bailout. Anyway, it doesn't even have to be something you run in your deck. So a very interesting card to exist, and will probably be impactful in many games just because of random generation effects, ethereal lackeys and such as well. Now, I think it actually has a chance to get run in decks as well. I don't think this is going to be like a meta definer that's building a deck, that's defining a deck, but maybe a one of in certain things, and probably somewhat viable in even an aggressive, fast Zoo deck. So Shadow Council, to me, it reads meme, but I sure have some dreams too. Moving on here to Torrent, a new Shaman spell at 5 mana. It reads deal 8 damage to a minion. If you cast a spell last turn, this costs 3 less. So we have here kind of a Flame Lance style card at a base level, a good way to remove larger threats in the mid game, but you can also get this nice discount to make it a hyper efficient removal tool for only 2 mana, clearing, you know, a vast majority of minions in Hearthstone. That would be rather nice. And as far as its conditions concerned, it's certainly not hard to cast a spell on a previous turn. Sometimes that will happen organically. But Hearthstone, I think, is still a little bit more minion biased than spell biased. So you're more likely to have focused your mana into a minion. And it might be hard to anticipate the moments where you're going to need a Torrent next turn. Like there might be some obvious moments, Dino Tamer Bran is expected to come down. And you're going to need an answer to King Crush. Better play that spell on turn 6 so you got the Torrent on turn 7. Those instances exist. Also, of course, you can construct your deck in a way that is running more spells than normal to increase the consistency of this. But as we've seen with even things like elementals, it might be hard sometimes to keep those chains going. That said, Torrent's not bad at a base level, and then that efficiency upside is there. So if there is a bigger spell shaman out there, maybe it's using Fist of Rawdan or just some big removal spells, Torrent could be one of those mid to high cost spells to help empower that sort of deck rather nicely while also still offering some efficiency as needed. So this card, it's not got me super excited, but I think it looks fine. Moving on here to the Moarch Artificer, a 2-mana 2/4 demon that reads all minions take double damage from spells. So this card's kind of crazy in how big it scales for just a 2-drop. I mean, and it's neutral, so any class can run this. And if you run through each class to kind of think about the spells and damage-based spells in particular, Moarch becomes really intriguing. Flame Strikes that deal 8, right? Warlock with Nether Breath that suddenly deals 8 damage to minions at least, and then would Lifesteal for 8. That's crazy. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to like face damage spells. You're not going to be throwing fireballs for 12 damage or anything, but anytime you're looking to react to minions on board and might have some other upsides tied to the amount of damage you do via your spell, like with Nether Breath, Moarch Artificer becomes really, really interesting. Now, it's also just a 2-mana 2/4, which is a really good stat line for some decks, just getting that body down, but it immediately becomes susceptible to, say, your opponent's backstab, now dealing 4 instead of dealing 2. So you kind of have to wonder if it's worth it or not for those extra stats. But if your deck has a way to more likely utilize that increased damage from spells, or you have a lot of mid-game options or, really, really cheap things like backstabs yourself or those Nether Breaths to better utilize Moarch, then maybe there's enough upside here. That said, this does feel like a card that might end up in a little bit more shenanigan territory than like consistency, since there's some risk. Since you don't know if the spells are going to line up, you're going to have them at the same time. They're going to hit the minions they need. You may not even need the double damage in some instances. I think Moarch is probably going to end up being more awkward than amazing and falls just a little short. Moving on here to Imprisoned Antian. This is a new Ashes of Outland Demon Hunter card, and it's a 5-mana 10/6 demon. It is one of our imprisoned demons, so it's dormant for 2 turns. Then when it awakens, it will deal 10 damage randomly split among all enemies. So that's both minions and the enemy hero. And I can tell you from experience, having played against this card at the Hearthstone Summit, this one really did feel like it created some awkward moments, like some really high friction scenarios where you just didn't have anything to do that felt good. Particularly if they get it down on the board like on turn 4 with coin. There's just like, you can't really play a minion into it because it's going to get cleared in a couple turns. It's kind of lingering around on board, so eventually it's going to give you that turn where it's like, oh my god, what do I do? With the Mage Imprisoned option where it deals 2 damage to all minions, you can play out something for like 6 health and you're not that worried about it because it's just going to deal 2 to you. This one, the breakpoints are there. If you play 1 minion, it's probably going to kill it a lot of times. So it's going to hit your face some too, which by the way is really scary when you're looking at a 10 attack minion. So it's like you have to play something to contest this if you're a minion-based deck that doesn't have removal for it, right? You can't kill it early because it's dormant, so you can't interact with it. So you're kind of helpless at the hands of the Imprisoned Antian, and it feels like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Now, of course, I wasn't playing, meta-refined decks in that scenario. Maybe other decks will just kind of ignore it and go face and just be happy, or, they'll have better counterplay to it. But for now, this feels like a very scary high-friction dude that creates a lot of problems for the opponent. And if they can't deal with it, that 10 attack can become oppressive and scary as well. So they kind of have to figure something out, which means I think this card is actually going to be pretty darn powerful. So next up here is the Pit Commander, another Ashes Demon Hunter card. It's a 9-mana 7/9 demon, and it's really one of the, I would say, like centerpieces of the big demon build I've been teasing It has Taunt at default, which is nice because it'd be really hard to play a 9 mana 7/9 without Taunt. But it also reads at the end of your turn, summon a demon from your deck. So if you're only running big demons, then this can help you cheat out a big demon. And it is interesting that it's specifically a demon, so you can build out this like big demon package while still using smaller non-demon minions to complement your early curve without risking pulling a small minion out of your pit commander, which would be pretty disappointing. So theoretically, if you build your deck the right way, this is going to result in a couple gigantic bodies on board, which might be in a follow-up. Now, that said, I still think pit commander is going to be a little bit too slow. Other cards we've seen like this in the past in this vein, comparable cards, haven't really gotten there or made much sense. You know, maybe the like Spiteful Summoner style cards that came down, turn 6, turn 7 made more sense. As you start squeezing towards turn 9, these things become harder and harder to be relevant. Your opponent has just done more in the meantime or draws into removal spells, etc., etc. So Pit Commander to me, I think it's just going to suffer from that slow demon feeling. Maybe if you can cheat it out enough with discounts or other demon things and start this kind of chain of big demon stuff, the possibilities are there. I just don't see it coming together as a high-tier deck. Moving on here to the Furious Felfin, a new 2-mana 3/2 Murloc in Ashes of Outland Demon Hunter set. It's a battle cry. If your hero attacked this turn, gain +1 attack and rush. So we have here another attack synergy style card for Demon Hunters. If that works, that means this becomes a 4/2 with rush for 2 mana. Which, you know, theoretically trades fairly efficiently into some mid-game minions. But of course, it does have a condition you have to attack. So it's really more like, you know, on turn 3, you get a 4/2 and your 1 attack from your hero power, or of course, later in the game, any given mana breakpoint. But I saw some exciting reactions to this card. People really seem to like it pretty well. I'm not actually as convinced this one will be good. And the reason for that is because I think for this to be very relevant, it needs to have more health. I think rush minions in the early game with higher health that can take value trades over early game minions and live to survive to trade into something else is way, way better. So for instance, if you look at a card like Underbelly Fence, for instance, for Rogue, 3/4 with rush, that makes way more sense in the other game than a 4/2 with rush, just because I think this is going to die to most trades. Now, I will say this could be great on turn 2 if you were trading into, say, like 1/3 minions your opponent played on turn 1, but that's going to be harder to pull off given you're going to have to attack, which means you might need to hit your hero power button in some cases. So I don't know that actually on turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, this feels as good. And I think it's going to be a little bit awkward to utilize in those instances. So although it is just a 4/2 for 2 in some cases, or just a 3/2 Murloc for 2, which could be relevant in a Murloc build, I don't know if Demon Hunters are going to go Murloc specific. This is not a neutral card, it's a Demon Hunter card. And I think that's going to leave this guy on the sidelines a little bit. I think most decks will find an excuse to cut this. It just doesn't feel as good as something like Diving Griffin, for instance, if you want to compare it to that, for 3 mana, because that pulls a card back into your hand, it synergizes with rush, and you don't mind trading it in because you're getting a little bit of value passed back anyway. This one feels a lot worse to trade in. So for me, Furious Felfin, it's fine. It's just not great. Moving on here to Spectral Site, a 2-mana spell for Demon Hunter. I guess I'm a little late on this one. Maybe it came out at a weird time. But it reads, draw a card and outcast, draw another. So at its base, not particularly exciting. You don't love spending 2 mana just to cycle. But 2 mana draw 2 is actually pretty fantastic. That's better than, say, an Arcane Intellect, and could be a great way to start refilling your hand. Now, of course, you have to get outcast for that to happen. And I think this card actually really suits outcast nicely, unlike some other ones, because I think this is one that feels both great as a top deck, which most of them are about the same as top decks. Like, you don't have a lot of decision or control. If it hits your hand at the right time, boom, it's a great top deck. But this one's also good as a left-hand side card, I think, which some Outcast cards feel like they're not going to be as opportunistic from the left-hand side. The reason for that is because you're going to be wanting to play this when you're looking for cards. So it's going to be later in the game. This will have time to drift to the left side of your hand. Maybe I need to go this way for you guys. And that's great because you're going to be playing everything else out from hand. You won't need to play this until you've already played those other cards. So I think it will very naturally end up on the left hand of your side of your deck. And then when you top deck it, it's fantastic because if you are out of cards, you top deck it, boom, you get 2 immediately, and that's great. Or if you need new decision points and this comes into your hand, it gives you basically the opportunity for 2 new decision points if what's in the rest of your hand isn't feeling all that great. So in both instances, this is an amazing looking Outcast card. Now, the question is just, is it worth it? Because there will be those instances it doesn't draw you 2, and it's a pretty bad card in those examples. I think it might still be. It just depends on the Demon Hunter build and if they've got enough card draw off of other options like Feast of Souls. If they do, Spectral Site probably gets cut, but nonetheless, I think there will be an eventual Demon Hunter deck that is able to utilize this successfully. So now moving over to one last Demon Hunter Initiate card that we missed. This is Soul Split, a 4-mana spell that allows you to choose a friendly demon and summon a copy of it. So in a way, kind of like a Conjurer's Calling almost, where you're picking a minion and you're turning it into 2 minions, hopefully of equal or sometimes bigger size in the case of Conjurers, in this case always equal size. So if you have some powerful big demons in your deck that you're looking to copy, Soul Split can do that very efficiently. So take, an 8/8 and get a 4-mana 8/8 out of Soul Split. The problem, of course, with Soul Split is it's limited specifically to demons, so it's very narrow in its focus already. Also, the demons you want to copy are going to be big demons, and they have to live on board. So, if, for instance, you want to copy an 8-mana demon, you can't do all that in one turn outside of some pretty significant discounts, which are possible, but of course add to the difficulty and increase the unlikeliness of said event. So it's like, is this really worth it on a 6-mana demon, for instance, in a single turn? How often are your demons going to persist into the next turn to get this off? If they have they taken damage, which makes the copy worse, because it's going to be a copy that is damaged in that case. All in all, basically with Soul Split, it looks worse than Conjurer's Calling because there's no upside. It's way more narrow in its focus. I don't think demon builds really work for it because the big stuff you want to copy is like 9 mana, as we saw, and that's going to be really hard to pull off with a card like Soul Split. So I do think this one's going to end up being way, way too awkward. If there were some, 6-mana charge demons that could kill your opponent, sure. But as we understand demon builds today, where you'd really get the value and efficiency out of this card, it's going to be too difficult to achieve. And if you just copy 2 drops, then you're getting a terrible result for 4 mana in most cases. So I don't think Soul Split makes sense unless there's just some ridiculous, low-cost Sea Giant style demon that shows up that's very easy to get down affordably, and you can copy it in the same turn, which seems unlikely. So I'm penalizing Soul Split for opportunity, basically, because I don't think it's going to have much of it. Blackjack Stunner is a 4-star card. Shadow Council, 3-star card, I guess. Torrent is a 3-star card. Moarch Artificer is a 2-star card. Imprison Antan is a 4-star card. Pit Commander is a 3-star card. Furious Felfin is a 2-star card. Spectral Site is a 3-star card. Soul Split is a 2-star card. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for review number 2 for Ashes of Outland and that one-stranded Demon Hunter Initiate card. Of course, share your thoughts on these below. I think I took some takes that might be poorly received among many of you, but that's it. Share your thoughts. I don't care. We're welcome to disagree. You guys are just as smart as me. So share your takes in the comments below. I'm sure we'll all enjoy reading them. But until then, thanks much for watching. And until next time, game on.